Paul is a flagship character of the Tekken series, and like many flagship characters, there hasn't been a single game he was left out of. With how his story is structured nowadays, newer fans of the series probably wouldn't believe me if I told them that Paul was once a more important character. Back in the days of Tekken 1 and 2, Paul was a force to be reckoned with. He was even a rival of Kazuya's. Much like Hwoarang's first battle with Jin, Paul could only manage a draw. Sure, someone could argue that he was always a comedic character. After all, he did miss his match with Kazuya in the second tournament due to traffic. Still, that doesn't change the fact that the character's relevance has dwindled over time. The charming thing about Paul, at least to me, was how his story always held variety. I mean, you wouldn't expect for a character as strong as Paul to have a rivalry with a bear, a goofy friendship with a cook, or the worst luck you've ever seen. Now when you look at Paul, you see a totally different person. The goofy meter is at an all-time high, and instead of being the fearless and powerful character that most of us grew up to know and love, he's now prone to running away from fights. That's not the Paul I know. A person like Fang Wei shouldn't scare Paul. Instead, Paul should be excited to fight someone as powerful as him. We're talking about the same person who beat Ogre, the god of fighting, and lived to tell the story. I also didn't like the fact that Paul double teamed an opponent. I never took him for the type to fight unfairly, especially against a strong opponent. If it was my decision, I would have restructured Law's Tekken 7 ending so that at the very least, Paul would have jumped in when Law was unable to fight. And don't even get me started on Paul's story in Tekken 5. I mean, aliens? Really? All the guy wanted to do was fight Kazuya and get his revenge on Kuma, only accomplishing the latter of the two. I also felt that it was a bit out of character for Paul to not have any concern for Law's son, especially since his motorcycle was the thing that he left out of his sight for Force to take and hurt himself with. I thought his story in Tekken 6 was hilarious, but it feels like a blow to Paul fans who just wants a canon story. Aliens and money schemes aside, I have a few points that I feel would make his story more enjoyable and improve his character overall. At the end of the day, all we want is for a better story, right? For one, I think they should take his Tekken 4 story as inspiration for his Tekken 8 narrative. In Tekken 4, we saw a different side to Paul. The story was essentially the upbringing of a loser, with a compelling message that fame and luxury isn't everything. I want to see a more human side of Paul. The guy is more than just a loud mouth. How does he feel? How does he view things? What's his stance on the state of the world now that the Mishima Zaibatsu and the G Corporation are at war? Would he want to fight Kazuya even more now? Would he despise Kazuya? Would he put 2 and 2 together and realize that Kazuya was always someone who felt unusually sadistic? Well, at least ever since the second tournament. I guess what I'm asking is for some world building with sprinkled bits of character development. If Kazuya is involved in any way in his story, I feel that it would be fine time for Paul to fight him. We've been teased this scenario ever since Tekken 4, almost 2 decades ago. What can one fight hurt? I also wouldn't mind a mention of Forest Law. It would be a profound development if we discovered that Paul has been pitching in with his hospital bills. The cameo would not only bring joy to Forest fans, but Paul fans could finally get a glimpse of how charismatic he can be. Do you guys remember the ending scene in Tekken 4 where Paul was looking through the window of a dojo? That scene left a lasting impression on me. Training in a dojo isn't anything new for Paul. Imagine if in Tekken 8, he had his own dojo in the exact same place. That idea could go far. What if one of his pupils could turn out to be a new character to the series? Someone with a strong personality like him, but unique and different in their own way. You know, like how the Tekken 3 newcomers were different than their predecessors. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have any comedy in his story, but there could be a better balance of it. We could still have the goofy interactions with Kuma. Maybe for Tekken 8, the two could fight due to Kuma's distraught over the death of Heihachi, a fight that could end with Paul offering his condolences and a shoulder for him to cry on. As a new member of the Tekken Force, Kuma was looking forward to serving Heihachi in more ways than just a bodyguard and pet. He even wore goggles as a sign of his devotion. Heck, maybe a friendship could come out of it. I mean, I could see a scene where Paul brings Kuma to Marshall's diner. That would bring in a ton of new customers to his business, which would make Law feel better about an animal being there, and it would give Kuma a new home. Paul has the potential of being something more. I love laughing at Paul as much as anyone else, but I respect him for more than just being a clown. Tekken 7 was the first game in a long time that we got something remotely canon. Let's keep that cycle going, for the sake of Paul having a great story. Give him more meaningful interactions, ditch the cowardly aspect to his character, and progress his character as well. If Namco could do that, it would do Paul so much justice. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed the content, check out my video on how to fix Asuka from Tekken. You'll love it.